They told you that property was freedom, that to own something was to be someone. From childhood, you were taught to draw lines around things. This is mine, that is yours. You were rewarded for keeping what's yours and punished for taking what wasn't. But you were never told where these rules came from. You never questioned why it feels so natural, so moral, to claim, to possess, to protect, as if the desire to own was written into your DNA. But it wasn't. It was written into your mind by men like John Locke. Locke, the philosopher of freedom, of rights, of democracy. The thinker credited with shaping the foundation of modern liberalism. But if you look closer, beneath the polished words, beneath the Enlightenment ideals, you'll find something else. A blueprint for control, a manual not for liberation but for psychological domination. Locke believed that property began when an individual mixed their labor with the land, that once you worked it, touched it, improved it, it became yours. It sounds reasonable, even fair, but that single idea, labor creates ownership, has become one of the most powerful, unquestioned forces shaping human behavior today. Because if labor creates ownership, then those who don't own must not have worked. If land belongs to those who improve it, then the untouched forests, the indigenous ways of life, the communal territories are all illegitimate, worthless, up for grabs. This was not a theory. It was justification. It gave moral cover to conquest, colonization, enclosure. It turned the theft of entire continents into a noble act. It gave an empire the excuse it needed. But the damage wasn't just out there, on maps, in wars, in borders. The real legacy is inside your head. You were born into a world already carved up by invisible hands. Land, property, rights, already distributed, already claimed. You entered the game late, and they told you the only way to survive was to play harder, work more, buy more, own more. Because without ownership, you are nothing. Without property, you have no place. You have no identity. So you did what you were told. You fought for wages, status, mortgages. You signed contracts. You celebrated your first paycheck. You smiled when you got the keys to your first apartment. You believed that owning something meant you were finally becoming free. But deep down, something felt wrong. You still felt anxious, still insecure, because the finish line kept moving. You got what you were told you needed, yet it never felt like enough. That's the secret Locke never wrote about. The chapter that was never taught in school. Property doesn't set you free, it hooks you. Once you believe that ownership is the path to freedom, they don't need to enslave you. You enslave yourself. Locke's idea did more than justify capitalism. It made it sacred. His philosophy turned ownership into morality. The rich became the righteous. The poor became the failures. The world was no longer divided between the powerful and the powerless. It was divided between the deserving and the undeserving. You internalized this. You looked at the homeless and felt discomfort, maybe even disgust. You saw poverty not as a symptom of a broken system, but as evidence of broken individuals. You didn't question the rules. You blamed the players. That is the power of ideology. When it works, you defend the chains that bind you. You call them order. You call them responsibility. But here's what they never tell you. Property isn't real. It's a social hallucination, a collective fantasy, a story powerful enough to shape empires, laws, and most importantly, minds. Because property isn't about things. It's about boundaries, about control, about psychological territory. It teaches you to draw lines not just on land, but inside yourself. You start to think in terms of mine and not mine, owned and unowned, valuable and worthless. And eventually you do the same with people. My family, my country, my children, my legacy. As if love itself must pass through ownership to be valid. This is the ultimate success of Locke's script. It didn't just colonize land, it colonized thought. And if you ever stop to question it, you'll feel fear. Not because someone is threatening you, but because your identity is so entangled with what you own that to imagine a world without property feels like erasing yourself. That's how deep the program goes. You could lose your job, your house, your savings, and still blame yourself, still call it fair, still worship the system that devoured you. Because property has become not just a legal structure, but a psychological one. It governs your sense of time, value, identity, even love. They don't need walls anymore. The prison is inside you. And here's the terrifying part. The more you chase freedom through ownership, the less free you become. You accumulate things to feel secure, but those things own you. You work to buy, then work to keep, then work to protect, until your entire life is orbiting around stuff. You forget how to rest, how to be, how to exist without proving your worth through possessions. You forget that you were born with value. Not because of what you own, but because you are. The system Locke helped create tells you otherwise. It whispers that your dignity is earned, that your rights come from contracts, that your worth must be proven through labor, through property, through suffering. That's the quiet violence of his legacy, and it's everywhere. In every landlord's threat, in every eviction notice, in every family broken by debt, in every developer who raises a community for profit, in every border drawn with ink and blood. It echoes in corporate offices, in bank vaults, in courtroom speeches and graduation ceremonies. But most of all, it echoes in your mind. So ask yourself, what would you be without property? Not poor, not lesser. Free. Maybe for the first time. Because when you strip away the layers of contracts, rights, ownership, and wage slavery, what's left isn't emptiness. It's possibility. And that's what they fear. Because a person who no longer defines themselves by what they own cannot be controlled. A person who knows they were born worthy doesn't need to prove it through material conquest. They don't need the game. They don't need the lies. They don't need Locke. If this made you question something, share it. If it disturbed you, sit with it. If you felt the weight of this system your whole life and never had the words for it, now you do. Comment below what property has cost you, not just in money but in soul. And remember, the most powerful systems don't force you, they teach you to force yourself. Freedom begins the moment you see the cage. And sometimes, that cage has a philosopher's name carved into the door.